Cam Ward and Jeffery Simmons got in a fight at practice on Monday, and I think it's a great thing for the Tennessee Titans. I'll explain on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, I'm going to break down everything you need to know from Tennessee Titans practice on Monday, including Cam Ward and Jeffery Simmons getting in a fight and why I think it is a great thing also. We're going to take a look at some of the unsung rookies for the Tennessee Titans who are making an impact at practice on Monday. Also, we'll cap off yesterday's conversation, and I'll look at the things that I'm least confident in with the Tennessee Titans. And when I say a coaching issue, I mean more than just Brian Callahan. Now, before we get into all of that, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. The Titans have practice on Tuesday. They have practice on Wednesday. I'll be here to break all that down. I'll have a game preview for you guys before the game on Friday night, the Titans' final preseason game of the year at home. Can't wait to break all of that down, and I'll be here live after that game to tell you everything that you need to know. Cut down happens a week from today on Tuesday, so it's a great time to get locked in with the Locked On Titans podcast. With that being said, though, I do want to talk about Cam Ward and Jeffery Simmons getting in a fight at practice. And again, I think this is an absolutely great thing for the Tennessee Titans. New leaders need to establish themselves, and we're seeing that happen right now with obviously Cam Ward being at the forefront of that. But with new leadership and new guys who refuse to back down, that may cause somewhat of an issue at times with the guys who used to be the primary leaders and the guys who used to make everybody else back down. And we know on this team, that's Jeffery Simmons. So what exactly happened? Well, a couple of plays before the fight happened, according to multiple reports coming out of training camp. I mean, literally the moment practice ended, it was just a wave of tweets about this fight and videos with players talking about this fight between Cam Ward and Jeffery Simmons. But sounds like Jeffery Simmons and J.C. Latham got tied up a little bit. Latham may have gotten the best of Jeffery Simmons on a play, and a couple of plays later, Cam Ward throws a touchdown pass to Calvin Ridley in the end zone on a red zone drill. And what does Cam Ward do? Comes up behind Jeff Simmons, gives him a little shove, hits him with the Cam Ward celly with the hand waving in the face. And as I would expect any alpha, high-level defensive menace to do, Jeffery Simmons pushed him right back. Said, get out of my face. And anytime, and this is also something that I would expect anytime somebody puts their hands on the quarterback during practice, well, that's going to cause some people to react to that as well. So, of course, a little bit of a fracas breaks out with the offense, the defense, everybody kind of in the middle of it. I saw a couple of reporters saying that Titans PR had to get Jeffery Simmons back to the locker room because he was so fired up. Not surprised to hear that with Jeff. We know that Big Jeff has a little bit of a temper, always has. But I got to be honest with you. I know that there are going to be people out there who spin this as a bad thing. They're going to use it as a way to talk bad about Jeff. They're going to use it as a way to talk bad about Callahan and the team. And you guys know I'll be critical of the team. I usually get criticized by you guys for being too critical of the team. So I'm going to be critical when there's the opportunity to do it, and I think it makes sense, and that's how I feel. But this is something, this fight between Simmons and Ward, I love this. I love everything about this. This is what is supposed to happen as new leaders emerge. It's been Jeffery Simmons for how many years? You know, it was Big Jeff and it was Derrick Henry. And Henry was never really a super vocal guy in the locker room. And we know that Ryan Tannehill isn't some rah-rah, blah-blah-blah, lead the guys. And we know that Will Levis isn't leading the guys like Cam Ward is right now. And we know that Calvin Ridley isn't necessarily that rah-rah energy guy, and we know that Peter Skoronski isn't necessarily that rah-rah energy guy. So where does it come from? Where does the attitude, where does the swagger, where does the confidence, where does the get back? Where does that come from the Titans offense? When was the last time the Titans had a player who would score and taunt their opponent? And listen, I'm not sitting out here saying that taunting is good for the team and but at the end of the day, you got to have a little bit of edge to play this football game. You got to have a little bit of an edge in life, in my opinion. Now, different people need different levels of edge, and depending on what you want to do in your life and what your goals are, maybe it's not as necessary. But I can tell you, in professional sports, you need to have somewhat of an edge. And at the end of the day, every single great pro sports team ever had a couple of a-holes. A couple of guys that would get in your face and let you know, I'm cooking you. All right? And that's what the Titans need. That's what we desperately need. As people who watch the football team every weekend, we need some life to the offense. We need somebody who's going to get in somebody's face, somebody who's going to hit a little dance after a big catch or a big play, somebody to get the rest of the people fired up. And you know who I want that to be first and foremost, no matter what on my offense? I want it to be my quarterback. So I love that Cam Ward, after having a couple of down practices, and you know the defense is talking, Simmons is always talking. So when the defense had their successes and had their good practices that we talked about and had their good moments, you know Big Jeff was yelling at, you can't stop me, this is too easy. But so you know what? Yeah, Big Jeff, eat a little bit of that. My boy Trench King, J.C. Latham, the lockout master, smacked you a couple of bit ago. Now we're scoring. Take some of it. I love that Cam Ward's given that back. I love that. That is great news for Titans fans. That's great news for the energy and the swagger and the fire and the passion of this football team. And not only that, but the fact that J.C. Latham got Jeffery Simmons on a play and then was talking. Latham is a guy. You know, I say Pete isn't. Calvin is an exciting player who will talk, but Calvin is more of a laid-back guy. You know what I mean? He's a real chill guy. I need somebody on that offensive line to be the barker. I need somebody out there with Max Dog. And look, I think Skoronski is an awesome player, but Skoronski isn't going to get in Big Jeff's face and call him this and that and let him know. That's just not Pete's style. But that is J.C. Latham's style. And for Latham to take a leap, not only in his body, not only in his technique, but in his leadership, his personality, and his confidence, I want J.C. Latham putting people on the ground during games this fall, and I want him to let them know about it too. Let's go back. When was the last time the Titans truly had a dog who was super vocal and in your face? Henry had his moments, but that's not, he's more of the silent killer. It was A.J. Brown. It was Taylor Lewan. And say what you want about Taylor Lewan, but Lewan gave the Titans attitude. He gave the Titans personality. The Titans were more interesting and more fun to watch and more fun to talk about because Taylor Lewan was on the football team. That's why I always will give Taylor Lewan his credit, because they desperately needed not only the player that Taylor was, but the person that Taylor Lewan is. And the Titans still benefit to this day from Taylor Lewan's outgoing personality. So forgive me if I'm excited to hear that my starting quarterback in the future of this franchise, the face of the franchise, ain't afraid to tell Jeffery Simmons, here, take that. And I'm happy that my young second-year offensive lineman, who I expect and hope becomes elite in the NFL, I hope he's willing to tell Jeffery Simmons, you ain't all that, bud. I'm here now. The Titans need that going forward. The Titans need that change in leadership. They need that new blood. They need those new players to step up. Because for the last few years, with Henry leaving and AJ leaving, and it's just been Jeff. I don't want Jeff to dominate everybody around him. I want people who are equal to Jeffery Simmons, who can go back at Jeffery Simmons, who can go toe-to-toe with Jeffery Simmons. That's what we want. So, look, I would be more mad. There are some people who are going to be like, oh, you never touch the quarterback. That's so stupid. Look, it wasn't like stupid Shamar Stewart with the Bengals where he's falling into Joe Burrow during a play and knocking him down. This was afterwards, some pushing and shoving. This isn't like Jeffery Simmons coming in low and hitting Cam Ward in the pocket during a play. This isn't to that. Yes, that is outrageous, but a little pushing and shoving after the play, some barking at each other. I love that. I need more of that. And that's why I'm so hype about Cam Ward, hype about J.C. Latham. New leadership for the Tennessee Titans is emerging. They're willing to go right at Jeff Simmons, and that is good news for the Tennessee Titans. Let's talk about some rookies. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, folks, big news. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, hey, this is your moment. Maybe you want to take a flyer on Cam Ward MVP. Maybe you want to say Titans Super Bowl champs. I'll take those odds. Maybe you just want to parlay the Titans as a division dark horse. Either way, you can do it on FanDuel. Make sure that you visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, or continue today's edition. I'm jumping the gun a little bit there. We talked about Cam Ward, Jeffery Simmons getting in that fight. I love hearing that. I'm not mad about it at all. All of the circumstances make me feel very excited about the situation. I'm glad that we're hearing it. But we got to talk about some actual football activities during practice, and I want to talk about some of the Tennessee Titans rookies again. Yesterday, we talked about the things I'm confident in this year, and the rookie class is definitely one of those, but we have some unsung rookies, some rookies who don't get quite as much attention as the other rookies who are really doing a good job in camp right now. Now, before we talk about that, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. So, at practice, again, we get another Gunnar Helm touchdown. And Gunnar Helm is getting popped now. Gunnar Helm is getting hyped now. But I will say, the rookie wide receivers have gotten way more attention. And it's wide receiver. I understand why that is. But I will continue to tell you that I think it's Gunnar Helm who will actually be the rookie that contributes the most to the offense this year, because I think he can be in a starting role right away. And honestly, his skill set fits so perfectly with Cam Ward, the contested catches, different things like that. Like, it's just, he's a good over the middle, good contested, good route runner, good enough blocker. Like, Gunnar Helm brings everything to the table, and it's no surprise that he still catches touchdown passes in red zone period in practice from Brandon Allen. Get that man with Cam Ward more often, because it's only a matter of time. But Gunnar Helm is obviously on the more well-discussed side of rookies, but Jackson Slater. I watched the tape over the weekend of the second preseason game, and Slater just moves guys in the run game. Now, he's got to get better in the pass game and better with his technique. He got beat a little bit inside during the game, a little overwhelmed at times with the speed coming off of the line of scrimmage, but that's something that as a rookie he's going to adjust to. But Jackson Slater, I think it was a report from Paul Kaharski saying that he had some stud moments in 1v1s in pass protection. Like, when you look at Kevin Zeitler, who is 35 years old, who hasn't really participated all that much in training camp and the all-season programs and stuff, like, he's been around, but as for actual practice, playing in the preseason, stuff like that, he, hasn't really been out there. A guy like Jackson Slater is primed to take that spot next year. Or as we get later into the season, maybe Kevin Zeitler starts to wear down a little bit. Jackson Slater, I said this when they drafted him, and I truly believe it. It's not this year. It's not this year, and it shouldn't be this year. But I think Jackson Slater will be the starting right guard next year. I really do believe that. He will be the starting right guard next year, and I think that a guy like Jackson Slater, who had versatility, he did a little bit of center at the Senior Bowl to try to, or I don't know if it was the Senior Bowl, one of the college All-Star games. There's so many, different players at this point. But Jackson Slater got some center reps, and there was some thought, especially when he was drafted. I talked about how I think he could be the long-term center for this team because Lloyd Cushenberry obviously isn't going to be around forever. And after the Achilles, we don't really know what to expect. But the Titans haven't used Jackson Slater at center basically at all during this offseason in any way. They've really been working him at guard. And when you wonder why not take the opportunity to get him some reps at center, I think the answer to that question is that Jackson Slater is the guy who they think will replace Kevin Zeitler at guard. Now, I'll tell you, I was impressed with Andrew Rupcich. I thought Rupcich did a good job, so I think he's going to make the roster now. I'm going to go with Rupcich to make, although Blake Hance is coming back, and I think they wanted Hance over Rupcich, but Rupcich has been really solid for 2 weeks, and I just think he's the next best guard here. But Slater should be better than Rupcich by this time next year. And I think that even by the time we get into the last month, the last 6 weeks of the season, it could be Slater as the primary backup for guard if Kevin Zeitler, obviously you don't want to hope Peter Skoronski gets injured in any way. But just saying, I think Slater can be that backup guard. And I think what we've seen the Titans do with him, leaving him at guard, focusing him at guard throughout the process, I think that kind of tells us that, hey, we think there might be some center versatility there, but we're way more worried about developing you as a guard for us. And I think that's great news for Jackson Slater. And since he's not going to start right away, since he's not, an immediate help to the team, he's not going to be on special teams, there's not really much to discuss with Jackson Slater, and that makes it not as sexy to throw him in the rundown on the side of the show or put him in the title and things like that. But Jackson Slater is developing well, and he's having good moments, and we're seeing him flash, and I think his development is right on schedule for the Titans. He's certainly going to make the team. Also, Marcus Harris. The Titans' 2 sixth-round picks, right? Marcus Harris. Darrell Baker Jr. has kind of lost some ground. Marcus Harris has started to impress. He had the PBU where he had the recovery speed and caught back up to the wide receiver. And here's the thing. The Titans need Marcus Harris to be good right away. L'Jarius Sneed, still not out there. And I'm going to do some injury updates here at the end of this segment, just real quickly. But L'Jarius Sneed, still not out there. Saw a report, I think it was also Paul Kaharski, who said that Jarvis Brownlee Jr. had his right ankle taped up super heavy. Now, he practiced, but he had his right ankle taped up super heavy. Maybe that's nothing. Maybe it's just, what he wants to do. Maybe it's how he likes it. But I think, we got to be careful. It's just a sobering reminder that if Jarvis Brownlee Jr. or Roger McCreary go down, the Titans have the worst cornerback group in the league. And if Marcus Harris can develop quicker and faster and be more of a usable player right away, that'll help that. But, at the same time, what are we really talking about here? How much can Marcus Harris help right away? But Jarvis Brownlee Jr. was a 5th-round pick last year. We weren't 100% certain about, and look how he turned out. And we felt comfortable with him, and now we feel comfortable with him now. Maybe the Titans are just going to be really, really good under this regime with finding late-round cornerbacks, which would be absolutely huge because that's a position that requires so much depth, and you just need to stockpile as much as you can there. And with where the Titans are at, I don't think L'Jarius Sneed will be here after the year unless something crazy happens. Roger McCreary is a free agent after the year. Will the Titans want to pay a slot receiver with all the needs and where they're at as a team in their cycle? Those are big questions. So the more help the Titans can get at cornerback, the more young pieces that can step up and prove they can be a part of this team long term. Marcus Harris doing a really good job so far in training camp, doing his best. It's not all perfect by no means, but he's definitely significantly ahead of all the other younger cornerbacks, and he's to the point now where he's trying to break into that top 4 over Darrell Baker Jr. But with that being said, we do got to talk about some of the injury news outside of L'Jarius Sneed. Sneed not back. Lloyd Cushenberry did some 7-on-9. I think Teron Davenport reported that Lloyd Cushenberry is involved in some 7-on-9 team period. That's run stuff. So that's great news for Lloyd Cushenberry that he's getting back into these team drills so early in the week. You have a practice Tuesday, you have a practice Wednesday. I would not go full bore, but maybe Cushenberry by next week will be ready to be back full with the team. and just ready to go. Take a spot, and now you can start warming up 2 weeks until the regular season. Still no Kevin Winston. Still no T'Vondre Sweat. Definitely concerning. There was optimism that they'll be back this week. T'Vondre Sweat had his tonsils out, but has been out for weeks based on that. That's kind of a surprise to me. And then Kevin Winston, it's still, soreness, hamstring soreness management from the ACL tear that he's recovering from. So that's where we're at with those big-time injury updates. Not the best news, but hopefully more good news coming down the line. With that being said, I want to cap off our conversation from yesterday where I went over the things that I'm most optimistic about with the Titans and talk about some of the things that I'm least optimistic about. Obviously, you guys know it'll be Brian Callahan, but I really do think that it's more than just Brian Callahan. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best place to buy tickets. I buy all my tickets on Gametime. I know it's baseball season right now, and hey, have you ever decided at the last minute that you want to go to a ball game with your family and friends? Maybe it's game day. Suddenly you realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can spend more on food, drinks, merch, even bring a bigger group. Gametime makes it all possible. Buying tickets with Gametime is simple and fast. The prices actually drop the closer that you get to first pitch, and they have the best features in the industry. Last-minute deals, clear seat views, a lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Cam Ward fighting Jeff Simmons at practice. We talked about some of the unsung rookies that deserve a little bit more credit and some injury updates. Now I want to cap off yesterday's conversation talking about the things I was most confident in with Cam Ward, the rookie class, the offensive line. Talk about some of the things I'm least confident in. Before I do, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. You got hosts Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. Every single day, they're going to prep you for your fantasy drafts. Make sure you're the most informed manager so you can take home your league's trophy this season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But my biggest concern by far is coaching. You guys know that. I'm concerned about Brian Callahan, his ability to lead a group of men, his ability to be an NFL head coach. But we've talked about that. But here's what I want to say. I'm actually concerned about the coaching staff more than just Brian Callahan. We talk about Denard Wilson. And the Tennessee Titans defense last year, I think it was 25th in sacks, 30th in pressure rate, weren't good on third downs. Now, the yardage was good. The yardage looked good. They were the second best team in yardage, really good pass defense statistics. And that has made some people believe that the Titans have a good defense. And I even believed that the Tennessee Titans were going to have a good defense. I have been saying, hey, odds are the Titans are going to have a good defense. If certain things go right, they could have a great defense. I'm not as confident in that anymore. I'm really not. You look at the issues with the pass rush. You look at some of the depth concerns in the secondary. I am excited to see James Williams and Cedric Gray battle it out for that linebacker role next to Cody Barton, but we're still talking about two second-year linebackers who we don't know if either of them are good. We've talked basically about who wins the job between the two of them, but that doesn't mean that either of them are good for NFL standards. So you look at the interior defensive line depth issues, which could lead to run defense issues. You think about the pass rush issues that we've discussed, and you think about the depth in the secondary. The talent on the defense may not be that good, and I am just not as convinced as I was that Denard Wilson is a great defensive coordinator. I felt pretty confident in that coming into this training camp and watching the defense play and thinking about some of the concerns and looking back at some of the stats. My guy Zach Lyons from F Words did a good tweet this week where he looked at how the Titans played 6 backup quarterbacks last year. Now, Joe Flacco for the Colts was in that. Sam Darnold for the Vikings was in that. I don't really know if you want to categorize them as backup quarterbacks, but basically it showed that the Tennessee Titans defense was helped out significantly by playing against bad quarterbacks all last year. So if the Titans play against better quarterback play and the defense isn't as protected, because think, all of the turnovers from the Titans offense last year made the defense not have to defend as many yards, and offenses weren't getting as many yards because they didn't have to go as far because of all of the turnovers. You think about how special teams factored into that, the penalties, the big returns that the Titans let up, the punt blocks for extra points. These offenses didn't have to go a lot of yards, and I think that made the Titans' yardage stats on defense look better than what they actually were. So where I was confident that the Titans would be a good defense and that Denard Wilson was a good defensive coordinator, I'm less convinced of that now, looking back at the way things went last year and having a more clear eye on it, and also seeing the defensive talent that the Titans have right now. Like, I am not convinced. Some people, when I talk about Brian Callahan, say they should have just hired Denard Wilson as the head coach. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not convinced that we know right now that Denard Wilson is a really good defensive coordinator. I'm more confident in him being a good defensive coordinator than Brian Callahan being a good head coach. But at this stage, where things are right now, I am less confident in Denard Wilson being a good defensive coordinator than I was before, and that brings my confidence in the coaching staff down even more than it already was. So they have big questions to answer here. That is my primary concern. I talk about the defense overall and some of the concerns that I have in there. I do got to mention also, I am a little bit concerned about this running back room. I mean, we know that the wide receiver group isn't top tier. We kind of have decent expectations for the offensive line at this point, but the talent does match those. Running back, man, if Tony Pollard is expected to be the bell cow back again this year, it's not going to go well. And if Tajay Spears cannot stay healthy, it's not going to go well. And Kellen Mullings is not ready yet. He's not good enough in pass protection to be a number 2 back. Julius Chestnut is not good enough to be a full-time running back in the NFL, in my opinion. Brian Robinson from the Washington Commanders is on the trade block. I think there are other teams that are more win-now focused that will probably make that move. But if the Titans gave up a conditional 7th, they could be a 6th rounder in 2026 or 2027 to get Brian Robinson to pair with Tony Pollard so they don't have to rely on Tajay Spears, and Brian Robinson is a big hammer back, which is what they need. I think that could make some sense. Do I think that happens? No, I don't. I think there will be teams that make more sense for Brian Robinson out there, but I just don't think it would be a bad idea for the Titans if the price were right. But wanted to at least throw that running back concern in there because we had running back as a secure position for so long, but now with the Tajay Spears injury, it certainly is not that. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.